my name is Carrigan Werner. I'm the owner of Bubby Nug, which is a new, small indie dev studio based in Wisconsin. I basically started it because I just want to make my own games. I've been playing games since I was a kid, love them. I just think they're the coolest thing in the world to essentially take an idea in your head, kind of like making a movie where you create an experience, you have an idea for something you want to make, you'd make it so that the person watching it can experience it. But this video games go even further because then you take that idea, then you say, okay, well, I'm going to make it so you get to go in there and interact with it. And that's not a game, but the fact that you can have that difference from like Tetris to then like Resident Evil or like any sort of bigger solid Halo is just so, I don't know. I think it's just the coolest thing. I should have video game wise for college, but I didn't. And I kind of regret now, now I've saved up money and started on my own just because I just want to. I should have done it a while ago. I didn't, but hey, I'm here now and I'm doing it.
You named a few games, so obviously I'm sure that, Metal Gear and stuff like that. That's one of my favorite games. So what were you playing and, what sort of created all of that, I guess, fervor to eventually want to make games?
Biggest one, the one that had the biggest effect on me was Halo.
Mm-hmm.
I remember getting Halo Combat Evolved, and then I remember playing Halo Combat Evolved at a cousin's house. I don't even remember how old I was, but it was just like, because before I played like Donkey Kong Country and like Aladdin on the N64. And so those were great though. Those were fantastic. And then seeing Halo though, it was like, what is this? It looks so real, even though looking back, and just how it played, that there was a story to it too, with like good voice acting and like the music was incredible. It was like, what is this? How can they do so much at once? So seeing that, playing through that, Halo 1, Halo 2, then Halo 3 came out with the 360, and then the multiplayer blew up, and then just Halo was such a big thing at the time. I mean, even back in the day, people lining up outside for the midnight releases dressed up, and they'd have like Master Chief, the guy in like a Master Chief costume at like the GameStop, and it was just huge. It was not the biggest thing ever.
Good old gaming days.
Yeah, I think Star Wars was bigger, but I mean, Halo was like insane. Seeing all the hype for that, living through it, and just how fantastic the games were too. And then you had Reach, and then you had ODST, and then you had Reach. And it was just this big, just the culmination of everything. Halo 3, finishing the fight. It just, man, I had Diablo 2, I have two older brothers, so most of the games I got were because they had them. Because I was too young at the time. I was playing like Diablo 2, which is like an M-rated game at like 7 years old, because, it was just good.
Yeah.
Diablo 2 was huge. Rome Total War, Medieval 2 Total War, Age of Empires 1 and 2, Gears of War, Call of Duties, like Metal Gear Solid, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, Vice City, Mercenaries, if you know that. They were just so focused back then. It's just that like, hey, we want to do this incredible thing. Everything just kind of makes like a phenomenal experience. And I kind of want to bring back those kind of games because we kind of lost some of them. The AAA kind of, at least in the West, it's a lot of the same names, but they don't make the same quality as they used to. And things change, and so there's some of that, but I don't know, they're not the same. And so indies, so basically AAA is going down, but indies are coming up, and indies are doing phenomenal, like things that people are doing because it's kind of what those big AAA studios used to be, before they got big. It's just a group of guys, although it's much smaller than they were back then. It is definitely different, but it's just a group of people that are hyper-focused on like, we're going to make this game as good as we possibly can, and then they do, and it's phenomenal. So I kind of want to get my foot in there too, because it's just something I love so much, and I just want to.
Yeah, Wisconsin. I've been to MDL, the gaming culture and stuff. It's big on board games and Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that. But you got a lot of big time companies, moving into town as well. So opportunities obviously are going to continue to grow there. But like, what has been the flavor for you as far as like being in town, being around all of those creative folks, all of that creative thinking around there?
I would say nothing. Being in Wisconsin didn't really influence me at all to make this decision to jump in there. But now that, because I didn't really look at who made the games before. Like you'd see Blizzard, that was a big one. If Blizzard made something, you bought Halos, and then I think like Pandemic made some good stuff. I didn't really pay too much attention to who made the games, and I didn't really know if anybody in Wisconsin was making too much stuff back then. I know Human Head Studios was a big one, but I didn't really pay attention to that. This was just kind of just more along the lines of the things I played, knowing I love them that much and I should have went into something like college related to them, realizing
Mm-hmm.
that too late. I mean, I guess I could go back now, but I mean, I could also just find a local developer and then say, hey, I want to make a game. Are
Yeah.
you guys into that? And that's what I'm doing.
I just asked because it doesn't surprise me that you necessarily didn't have that or didn't find that, just from the simple fact of when I went for the first time, I didn't even know all of that stuff was there, for one. But
Yeah.
also just from the standpoint of, like, unless you're in the loop already or you know where these people are, I mean, you don't know what you don't know. So, but I mean, it is starting to get to a point now to where a lot of these big companies and stuff are moving into town, and so it might just be a exposure thing. More games are going to be produced from there. Obviously, the colleges are following suit too, as far as being able to offer, different classes that sort of help.
It's definitely been a massive learning experience. I have to give a massive shout out to Ben Geisler, the owner of Flawed Codebase, which is the small dev group I did hire to make this, or the game I'm working on.
Yeah.
Good Lord, that man just knows so incredibly much, and he has so many connections. So, like, it really is a lot of, like, finding the right person who knows all the right people, because then he's like, oh, we need this. Yeah, I know a guy that
Yep.
can do sound. Or like, okay, hey, there's this convention we should go to. And it's like, oh, okay, I didn't even know that was a thing. So
Right.
jumping into this and then having somebody like Ben has just been phenomenal, because he basically has all of the years of experience that I'm kind of looking for, and then the connections. But like you said, if you don't know what's there, you just don't know. And then it just
Yeah.
spiderwebs out of all the things you did know that you probably are going to be learning now. Or it's
Yeah, shout out to Ben Guys. I interviewed him. I met Ben at MDev, actually.
was there. I might have seen you.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you probably have. I was doing a whole bunch of recording and up and down the hallways and stuff. So we were definitely on the move, and we sat in a couple of the seminars and stuff too.
I'm going to, I don't know if I've been to Madison before, but going there for that too, and then
Yeah.
like a specific gaming thing, it was just like, I didn't even know this was here.
Yeah, I get that you love it, but like there had to be a process in there to actually think that out, think that through. So like, how did that even come about?
So there was are you familiar with the survivors-like games like Vampire Survivors, the action roguelikes?
Mm-hmm.
Those came out
Yeah.
out of nowhere, kind of well, actually, I have it on Steam. Came out 2022, so 4 years ago. That genre kind of came out of nowhere, and I love it because it's simple but in depth at the same time, which is like just a phenomenal combination in my mind. And so then a bunch of different offshoots came of that game, of like people doing their own thing. And I played a bunch of those too, and because I just love the genre, the complex simplicity of it. And then I got to the point where I played a bunch of them, and all the movement I've noticed was the same, where it's basically you have WASD, so you could just move around on the map, and then you'd have a dash that might give you iframes or something like that. And I was like, well, that's cool, but they all played the same, essentially. So now I was thinking, like, okay, well, if I was going to make a game of this genre, what would I do? Well, first thing, I'm going to change the movement, because they all do the movement the same. So what would be cool? Well, a car is pretty cool. But then it's like, okay, we're just driving around, and then okay, so the movement is slightly different, but how can we even go further than that? And then so the idea was, okay, well, if you have a car, what's an interesting thing about cars that you can use to draw numbers from to like add to different variables? And then so I was like, oh, the engine. So what if we make the game about changing and modifying the car's engine, and then that will change your weapons? So basically the game right now works is that when you level up and you choose your upgrade cards, most of them, there'll be a few that just do like flat damage buffs of like damage plus 5%, or like the normal stuff, but most of it is going to be around your car's engine. So add another cylinder. So instead of having a big old V8, you'd have a V9, because why not? And that would change the displacement of it. You get more horsepower and torque, and so you basically build your engine, which then powers your weapons directly. Is your damage stat. Horsepower influences your damage. Your torque is your bullet penetration and AoE size. So like if you have an explosive weapon, it'll have a bigger AoE if you have more torque for your engine. Your engine's RPM is your fire rate. So as you go through the gears, you'll like, it'll shoot faster with your RPM. So maybe you want to be in a low gear with a high RPM, because then you'll have higher fire rate. And then your current speed is just your projectile speed, just to make sure if you're just flying, you're not outrunning your projectiles, because that would be kind of annoying. And then just to make sure that you aren't just sitting in a low gear the whole time, the higher gear you are in, your current gear, like if you're in 5th gear, your engine won't be as responsive, but you will have a higher multi-shot chance. So it kind of balances out the fire rate thing, so you're not just sitting in a low gear the whole time. There was a reason to go to the higher gears and higher speeds. So And then once I thought of that, I was like, well, that's just cool. I got to make that. So literally that's what it was. Once I had that engine thing, I was like, that's just too cool. I got to do something with that. Hopefully we will have because the first MDev, we were like 2 months into development, and there was just not enough to show. So hopefully by the end of this, well, it'll be at the end of this year. That's when MDev is. But for this MDev one, well, it'll be a much more polished build. Hopefully, we'll see how things go.
Yeah.
And then we can have a booth, let people play it, get some feedback, get some direct, like, hey, this is it. Do you have any questions? Answer them directly. What I plan on doing is actually, because I have an old Corvette, an 80s Corvette, and the game is 80s themed. So what I'm going to do is actually just rip off the whole back end of it and have that be the table with like that people play on, because I think that'll be cool. We'll see how easy that is to do. I think it'd be cool, but I don't know how practical it would be.
I was going to say that would definitely be interesting. That's for sure. I just pulled it up, actually, card game, an 80s retro wave roguelike. So talk to me a little bit about, like, what went into the game. What made you want to come up with, the car theme to begin with? Like, are you a car guy having a Corvette and stuff? Is the 80s a decade that, you want to, I guess, highlight?
So the 80s kind of was accidentally a good decade to start on, because I like the 80s. Once, I'm not like a huge car guy. I only got into cars about a few years ago. And then I was like, well, I kind of want a cool summer car. But my budget wasn't very big. And if you know anything about like Facebook Marketplace cars or anything on there, 80s cars are usually pretty cheap. So then once that, kind of narrowed me into this select few vehicles. And so I was like, well, I'm going to get one of these. And then they're just so cool, though. Something about like the electronics that were in them at the time. Like, have you ever seen a car with like an old 80s digital dashboard? They're just so cool. And I think it's kind of cool to look back of how people used to perceive technology, of like this hopeful thing of like, oh, it's so cool. The future's going to be so great. And now when we think of technology, it's like, well, my phone is constantly, I'm talking to my phone. My phone's always listening to me. It's just going to give me targeted ads and everything's spyware. And so now it's a very interesting shift we've had, but it's cool to look back and see like where the hope for technology all kind of came from and how they were using it. And also 80s is a pretty popular era right now. People are really nostalgic for it. I'm 28. I wasn't even alive there. But there is called Anemoia, which is basically nostalgia for an era you weren't born in, which is a thing right now too. So even like a lot of people my age really are like nostalgic for the 80s, even though we never experienced, because you look back and there's just so much cool. Obviously it's through rose tinted glasses, but how things were back then and how technology worked and how different it was. So there is some of that going on right now. And then it also ended up being a good decade to look at these cars, because during the 80s they didn't have too much horsepower because the emissions crisis of the 70s and all that stuff. So it's a good starting point for a game like this, where you're essentially going to be tuning and then rapidly upgrading your engine, because you start with a low horsepower so you can kind of get the feel of the vehicle, and then you will get stronger, and then so you'll slowly get horsepower and like get a more powerful vehicle as you play, rather than if we started with like a modern Hellcat and you're just 600, 100 horsepower right out of the bat and you're just flying. It'd be too much.
Yeah, I'm watching the video as you're talking right now. I'm getting the idea of like what it is that you're talking about. What's your thought process like as far as like the artwork and the controls and stuff?
The artwork we have on Ben Geisler's team, there's the artist he has she's really good at coming up with interesting ideas. The original idea was to do like vaporwave and then like move it into synthwave, because we want to kind of do the different aesthetics of the 80s. So the first map is like the vaporwave map, and then the next one we'll do is like a synthwave map, and then the third one we'll do is it would be like an 80s neon Vice City-esque, kind of Miami-esque city. Just because those are kind of like key visual things of the 80s, so why not just fly with them? Because there's plenty there to go off of. So the colors in that map are kind of more based off of the color palettes we have in there are kind of based off of a mix of vaporwave, synthwave color palettes, and also early computers like CRT computer like text with RGB colors they could show at the time, just to really get that kind of feel in there. And then the views we did 3 different camera views, because most games have like the top-down view for these action roguelikes, which is great, nothing against that, because you want to be able to see what's all around you to like be able to dodge and position yourself better. Right. But I was thinking, well, a lot of people that play games that like have to do with cars, like Forza and Assetto Corsa, and like all those games, they usually have a first and a third person. So I was like, well, why not just make it? Let's see if it works. And then I think we did a first person that worked great. And then somebody just threw a third person camera in for like debug testing, and I was like, that's phenomenal. That looks great. We're keeping that. So this is the first time a game like this has 3 different, camera angles, because most of them just don't necessarily need it, but it doesn't hurt. And I think it just makes it more accessible to people because if you're going to play a game with cars in it, usually people want to get close or inside, because that's where they usually drive it in real life to get more of a feel for it. So if you're just zoomed out all the time, that's fine. And it's good for the genre, but I feel like most people are going to want to be in the more grounded position with the car to see like how it's, moving and how the weight.
I mean, especially if they, driving a sim or something, they definitely want to be immersed in it.
Exactly. So then we did the 3 camera angle thing, which is, a cool thing to do, just because it's, if you want to change camera angles, you got the option. It's better to have the option to do it
Yeah.
rather than just be stuck in case, if you wanted to, then you can't. And so at any time in the game, you just hit tab and it switches to a different camera angle. So you could just freely throughout the play change it. And then we also have multiple different control schemes for different levels of accessibility, because maybe somebody likes the action roguelikes, but they don't care about cars. It just happens to have cars, and they're like, well, I'll play it. So we have an automatic transmission for people like that. You just hit W, it goes. You don't have to think about it too much. Then we have another transmission type. We have 3 different manuals. So one is a sequential, so basically Q and E. So if you hit E, you basically downshift. And if you hit Q, you upshift. So just really early, simple manual transmission controls for people that want to start getting into it. Then we have one, you engage the clutch. So you'll hit shift, which will essentially be your clutch pedal, and then you'll hit the number that you want to shift to. So if you're in 3rd gear and you're driving fast and you're at the end of your rev limiter, you'd hit shift 4, and it would shift you into 4th gear. And then maybe you slow down because you have to do a turn, so you'd hit shift, skip 3rd, and just hit shift 2, go to 2nd right away, and then you get more manual control there. And then the last one we did was you basically use your mouse to basically simulate the shift pattern. So once again, you'd hit shift for your clutch, and then you want to downshift, you go down, down, and then you'd hit, you're driving around, then you hit so then you literally use your mouse in like the actual pattern you would. I thought that was cool. We were going to be the first game to do something like that, but are you familiar with the game RV There Yet? It's kind of like it came out just as we were developing it, and it has no reason to have a shifting, like an in-depth shifting thing like that, but they did the exact same idea, and when I saw that, I was like, you gotta be kidding.
Yeah, that's how it happens.
It's like a fun little like friend game, and they have like in-depth simulated shifting. I was like, you guys gotta be kidding me.
What is the state of the project currently?
Right now it's pre-alpha. We do have a Kickstarter up, but it's gonna fail. I didn't do a good enough job of advertising it and getting the message out, and I didn't really have a following to begin with to I wasn't making YouTube videos or have like a TikTok page before. I also got bit by the bug. You're not supposed to do this, but if you're making a game, you're supposed to release stuff constantly to get people interested, and every time you would have something, I'd be like, well, if we just wait a week, I know we're going to get this in, and then we can show it there, and then we'd get there, and it's like, well, if we get that, it'll look better. So I got bit by that bug, which you're not supposed to do it. And I even knew it, but I was like, well, just wait for this one. And so that's my fault on the advertising part, but that's not going to stop me. I'm going to keep going. But there is a demo available. It's only a 5-minute demo, but it's on itch.io, free.
Okay. Date that you want to get it out by, or do you have like any sort of timeline as far as like when you'll have more to show? Like, will it be like, are you waiting to like show some stuff at MDev?
Because cars and the time period it's in is so, there's a lot we could do with it. So essentially, the idea is if the game does really good, let's just say hundreds of thousands of people buy it and they really like it and they want more. We could take the 80s, then do the 90s, and we could have like the 80s or the 90s, like JDM cars, the Skylines, the Supras, stuff like that. So we could do a whole 2000s era, 90s era, and then we could also do a 2000s era. And then I don't think I'd go any further than that, but I might even go back and do a 70s era. So it's like we can basically, if it does really good, it'll encompass 70s to 2000s eras, or decades, cars, and aesthetics of each of them. And I think that'd be a cool thing to do, but that's all wishful thinking. So right now it's just 80s. Yeah. And I don't really have a timeline of when it would be done, because it's kind of, we'll have to see how things go. Because I'm self-funding it right now, and it'll be interesting to see how it continues. So I don't really have a word on a solid date. I think next year would be potentially next year sometime.
Wanting to work on other projects? Do you have other projects sort of in the works, or you just, sticking to this one? What's your workflow and work process like?
For this one, I have a lot of it already documented out and shared with the development team of like kind of what things I want to have now, and then what we'll move on to. I really just like making games. So in my mind, I have on like a notepad, I have 16 other ones I want to make of varying sizes. They're not all going to be huge or small. Some are going to be just like a simple little platformer to learn, or it's got an interesting concept I want to do. And then some of them are going to be like, well, I'm not going to start it unless I get like a few $1 million because I want to do it right. So if I ever even have that much to do it. So, but I got a lot I want to make. Workflow wise, I have like Canvas for like organizing things. I have Excel documents I'll share with people, like write-ups of stuff. There's a lot. There's so much more that goes into these than you ever even know. Like just getting into this, I knew it would be more than anything I could imagine. And then getting into it be even more than that is like, holy moly. I wasn't even ready for what I wasn't ready for. But I'm here to learn.
What do you sort of see yourself as? What does sort of the future look like for you? Are you just looking to be someone who makes games and try to make a name for yourself on the indie scene, or like, are you wanting to one day work for like a AAA or something? Like, what's sort of your overall big picture goal as far as like making games and stuff like that?
My dream would be that essentially what I make is just really popular and makes a bunch of money. And then I take that and I literally just fund the next game with it. And I just keep going and just making more. Because like I said, I got 16 I want to make. And that's only right
Hmm.
now. Every once in a while I'll be like, oh, you know, it'd be cool. And I'll start going off on it. I got to stop. I got to focus on the one I'm making. So that's a problem I have, is just I want to make so many different things. So hopefully just being successful enough that I have enough money to essentially just keep funding and have ideally be my own studio, because I'm in direct control of it,
Hmm. Yeah.
and then just have like a group of like a really solid team that we just make the best that we can with the ideas we have, and just make something that kind of like what I was saying with like the old like mid 2000s like AAA studios we had. Like when if you saw Bungie on something, you were like, oh my god, I gotta buy it. If you saw Blizzard
Yeah.
was making a game, like I didn't even like, I'm not that big into sci-fi, which is weird because Halo's my favorite game, but like when StarCraft came out, I didn't really care that much, but you play it and it's like, this is incredible. Having a studio that is so respected because you know that whatever they put out is going to be phenomenal, whether you like the genre or not, is what I want to bring back. Like if
Yeah.
FromSoft,
Yeah.
From Software is huge right now. They could make anything and people would be like, well, it's probably going to be really good. That's kind of what I want to get again, is just have my own version of that with me in charge, because I'm not like a greedy person. Like if you see a lot of the AAA ones, you'll see like the CEOs getting hundreds of millions of dollars of a bonus and then laying off half the people, and it's like, what are you guys doing? So I just want to have like just a bubble of just like, we'll bring more people on. We're gonna make this game. What do you guys think? And then, oh, you guys have an idea? Okay, you make that game. And then it just, these people are making this game, right? And just make stuff. Hire people with skills to make stuff.
Plug yourself. How can people find the game, find the stuff you're working on, and all that stuff?
I'm working on a website I'll have up for Bubby Nug. That's the studio. We have the demo on itch.io under the one of our coders itch.io page, because he's made stuff in the past. So when I
Okay.
made one, they actually wouldn't let me link the game because it was like a protective thing. Of since I just made the account and I uploaded something, they're like, it's a virus. You know, we got to make sure. So it was like, okay, well, we'll just have it on his. One more thing I wanted to bring up. You did mention how indies need to stick together, and I really like that because I couldn't agree more. One of the things I want to do with my games going forward is essentially, like, let's say this game does really well. It's got the 80s, 90s, and up to 2000s. All those are fleshed out with cars and maps and all that. What I'd like to do is once the game comes out, or maybe like a few months after that, is just release certain assets that we own. It has to be, and I'm not going to release like licensed music, but like the original soundtrack for the 80s maps, the cars for the 80s maps, the art, the environment, things like that. If I'm done with it, take it and just give away the assets, make it a free to use asset pack. I want to do that with the 80s, the 90s, pretty much most things I make, because once I'm done with it, I'm going to move on. Not that I'm like
Yeah.
just like making this game and it's half done and then I'm just going to leave and go to the next one. But like once it's done and I have the entire thing done, it's like, yep, I did what I want to. Now I have this game I want to work on, which is completely different. So just give away some of the assets so that other indie people use it, because like I said, I'm self-funding this and it is expensive. Pretty much everything I saved up went away in half a year, and just watching that go is like, it took me 3 years to get here and now it's just gone. But helping out indies as much as possible, because like I said, I think they're going to be the future of kind of like game development, at least for a while.
Yeah.
Because they're like the true
Yeah.
creatives. They're the ones that are not necessarily just following trends. I mean, I'm making an action roguelike. That's a very popular genre, but it's not like I'm just doing a basic one. It's like, okay, here's the basis that's familiar to people. Here are the changes that hasn't been done. It's different, rather than like, another AAA studio that has a first-person shooter multiplayer game, and it's like, okay, I played this for the last 15 years. I know. There's a certain comfort in playing a game that you are familiar with, even though it's new, because like you just know the control schemes, you know this, that, and the other thing. This is grenade, this is melee, perks, and all that. But I don't know, making something a little different, a little unique, and special is more interesting to me. I think that's how it is
Yeah.
for a lot of indies. That's why they're making their own, because it's like, well, no AAA studio is going to make whatever this indie game eventually becomes.